What is it like going from working on your own to building a whole team? What are some of the key lessons that you learned in that process?
So for me, I think one of the first things that people need to realize is that onboarding your new team member doesn't start on the first day that they come to work for you. It starts with the job post that you put out there, how you interview them, who in your firm interviews them, and then how you treat them leading up to their very first day. And then after that, so many people think of a new employee starts on day one, but we're saying a new employee starts 90 days out when you envision the job and the role that you're going to put them in. And so if you could start with that mindset,
Hmm.
it's going to make that transition so much easier because by the time you get them to that first day one, I mean, there are things that we do in our office, because of the people that we have hired now are both split remote and in office. If you're in office on that first week and we have a new person coming in, everyone in the office wears a hello, my name is tag because it's hard. You're the one new person, Rebecca. Well, we all know Rebecca is brand new, but you're going to have to remember Jim and Jay and Joe, and there's three guys with J names, and then Emily and Phil and Brenton, who never shows up in the office because he's a remote worker, but he's based. You got to remember all these names. It's tough. It's intimidating. So we have a system for that to try to take away that stressful time for the new person. And all of those little things I think help in as you scale your business.
Imagine a scale. On one side is your successful law practice, and on the other is your personal financial growth. How do you strike the perfect balance? If this question resonates with you, you're in the right place. And actually, I wrote this intro earlier, but as I had my conversation with our guest here, who I'll introduce in a second, it became apparent that that was the right introduction. So, anyway, welcome listeners to another enlightening episode of The Lawyer Millionaire. I'm your host, Darren Wirtz, financial planner and wealth strategist for law firm owners. And it's my mission to help you navigate your pathway to financial success in the legal world, one step at a time. Today, we're joined by someone who has cracked the code, expertly balancing a prominent career in law with astute financial growth. His name resonates in the legal world as someone who is an aficionado of systems within law firms, social media marketing, and running a successful, scaled criminal defense practice. So you're going to hear a lot about that. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the self-proclaimed criminal mastermind, Jay Ruan. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, Jay?
It's Ruain.
Ruane. Okay.
I've answered to pretty much anything. Interestingly, it's a Gaelic name. It means man with red face, so it's pretty appropriate given my skin tone that I've got. I always seem to have a ruddy complexion, so it's certainly I fit my name.
Especially if you go out in the sun too long. So there you
Oh,
go.
absolutely. I need to wear SPF Irish, which is like corduroy in a bottle, because I become Teddy Tomato Face the minute I get exposed to sun.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's great to have you here. I'm super excited to hear all the wisdom you have to share. You do some great things now, passing on your wisdom to other law firm owners and helping them scale and grow and put in place systems. Before we get into all of that, why don't you enlighten us a little bit about your journey into law, specifically into the realms and systems? But let's go back further than that, because I understand that this was kind of a family tradition for you coming into the world of legal. Take us back there.
Yeah, so I started off my career back in the 90s as a criminal defense lawyer. My father had a solo criminal defense practice himself with one a secretary, and I had seen what it was like for him to be in private practice, and I didn't want that. I wanted the safety and security of steady work and a steady paycheck. So I sought out to become a public defender. And I did that for about a year and a half. And then I got, some righteous indignation with my supervisor at the time. And I quit the job on the spot with no safety net or plan in place. So I walked a couple of blocks to my father's office. I said, I just quit. And he said, I don't know what you think I can do for you, but let's see if the guys I share space with would mind if you set up shop here? So he talked to the other guys in the office that he was splitting the rent with. There was a broken desk in a corner, and I just hung a shingle and said, I'm going to figure this out. And, I got some success in the first year. Eventually, my father and I decided to partner up. And that really became the journey of our practice. And I had been lucky during law school. I had worked at one of his good friends, a competitor to him in the space, and I saw the inside of that operation and identified some problems with how they didn't collect money from clients and how they just didn't have any systems. And as a person who I guess I'm lazy, I tend to, I guess it's either laziness or ADD or a combination of both. If there's something I don't want to do,
Mm,
I need to develop a system because A, I will put it off as long as possible, but B, I want to get through it as quickly as possible.
yeah.
And so what I found was as we were growing, the more systems I had in place, the better my operation was. And that in turn has turned into just, growth that I feel like we've been drinking from a fire hose ever since COVID let up. We were growing before that. And then we obviously hit the setbacks that everybody else did. But now, I mean, we are growing 25-30% a year for the last 2-3 years.
Wow.
And it doesn't seem to be letting up. I was just talking to my leadership team this week, and I was like, when's it going to slow down? Like, we hired 3 new people this week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, are we done? Can we not hire anybody for the next couple of months? And they're like, no, we actually have identified a bunch of more jobs we need to fill. So, I've been very blessed. I have tried other areas of law. We've brought in people to handle family law, do personal injury law, and civil rights law. But my heart is as a criminal defense lawyer because I think I grew up exposed to that through my father. I was very blessed to have an open uh, a look in as to how he was interacting with his clientele. And I talked to plenty of guys that were locked up at night when they would call the house collect from the jail to talk to their lawyer. So I'm blessed to know where I belong, and now I can really execute and scale and grow and take care of a lot of people that work for me and for my clients. So it's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Um, you and I have some very similar characteristics here, in that I was a teacher for 5 years, and I was working on I knew I was going to shift into financial planning, but originally it was kind of a long term. I was going to slowly phase into it, and I went back to school and worked on my master's in financial planning. Um, and what the thing was, I hit my fifth year, and after 5 years, you're vested in your retirement plan. And I just kind of decided suddenly at the end of the year, like, heck, I'm done. I'm out. I'm gonna do something different. And to my dad's surprise, dad was like, "What?" So, and I came into the family business, and he really wasn't, I think, expecting that at the time. But hey, it all worked out, obviously, for
Yeah.
you and for me. So sometimes you got to make those bold moves.
Well, and it's interesting. I had talked to somebody about financial planning. Actually, it's interesting that the topic. I had talked to a friend of mine years and years ago, and they said, whatever you're investing now, how conservative are you being? And I'm like, well, I'm 28 years old. Putting away $1,000. I don't want anything to happen to that $1,000. I've got it. At that point, I think it was making a half of a percentage point in a savings account.
Mhm.
And my friend who was in fighting, he was like, dude, now's your chance to be aggressive because you got opportunity
Yeah.
to make it up if something goes wrong. But if you're not taking chances now, you're never going to have the opportunity and the bandwidth to take those chances later. And I think that also helped me identify those things in my career. I decided to niche down when everyone thought I was crazy for niching down in the criminal. I niched into DUI, and I was getting told by so many lawyers, you're crazy to do this, but it's been successful. Last year, we just ran the numbers. Last year, my firm handled 5% of all of the DUI cases in the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
I mean, I think we're getting close to being a market maker in that space. And
Yeah.
I think with our growth, we might get to 10% in the next 5 years, which would be huge, which
Hmm.
would be huge.
Yeah, this is really incredible for me. I'm glad you're here to talk about what you do and mentioning the idea of niching down. You were kind of early on to that trend, it sounds like. And, it is a smart idea. I think more and more people are kind of realizing that that is a pathway to success. And I think ultimately it is the thing that you use to set yourself apart. Well, there's two things in my mind, and maybe you can share how you view it, but it sets you apart, which is critical because there's so many financial advisors, so many attorneys out there. You know what I mean? You have to set yourself apart. But part number two is it makes you so much more effective.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with it 100%. If you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to fail. Because and I'll be honest with you, it's hard as a lawyer because I see my friends that are in other areas of law, and I'll be honest, there is always a pang of regret that I didn't get into the PI space, or hey, why aren't I trying to bring in a PI vertical into my practice or a family law because the numbers are higher? I mean, look, I practice criminal defense. People don't like hiring a criminal defense lawyer. We compete with the public defender, who people can get for free. And most people don't like paying for their mistakes the first time, but now they got to compound it and hire a lawyer to get them out from underneath it. They resent the fact that they even have to pay us, right? So it's not
Yeah.
like, I mean, you want to get a divorce, you're going to find the money to pay for that gladly because you want out of that relationship. PI lawyers, they don't have to worry about it. They're getting big checks on the back end, and there's a lot of singles in their business too. But in a criminal defense practice, I don't hit home runs.
Yeah.
Financially, I may hit home runs walking a guy out of jail after reversing their murder conviction. That's huge to me. That's the kind of stuff I will remember, having been part of on my deathbed. But I'm not getting a $50 million
Yeah.
verdict.
You're not
It's
getting a
not
huge
happening.
bonus.
There's no bonus. Like,
Yeah.
it just, there's no extra money on the back end for me. And that, I think, has had to be something that I consciously made decisions about, and realized that no, I am in my niche. I need to stay in my niche. I need to work my niche, and that will provide security and reward if I just concentrate and I don't try to get scatterbrained and do a million things, because I will never be the personal injury lawyer that my friends are. I'll never be the family lawyer that they are. But I can have job satisfaction, life satisfaction, and make a good living. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not digging ditches, so I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
Right. You found success in the space of criminal defense, niching down to that area. And I love this because you're right. A lot of times people think, well, it's the personal injury attorneys that make the big bucks, or experience success a lot easier. But it really doesn't matter what practice area you're in. There are folks who are on the struggle bus in every area. It's just a matter of putting in place the right systems, I'm sure.
Systems.
And let's go into that because you have obviously built a successful practice. Is it the systems in place that have made you as successful as you are? Are there other areas? And if it is the systems, let's get into some of the key systems that have really helped you.
So for me, I think the systems allow me on the legal operations side, on the administration side, on the marketing side, and just in the personal life side, having reliable systems and being able to turn to them when we need to execute any sort of project allows me to free my mind and allows a higher level of lawyer think, financial strategy, and marketing strategy, whatever it is, because I know
Mhm.
I have the systems in place that are going to get the baseline done. Too many people have to constantly reinvent the wheel. For me, I knew I was going to be trying the same case over and over again, same type of case. So, I was able to build cross examination chapters, and I've got hundreds of them in my repository so that when I need to start a new trial and get ready for it, I have the resources. I'm not starting from scratch every time. That frees my mind to be able to think about deeper about this particular case and where I can do something creative. And it's the same thing, because I am able to automate my tax payments and automate my savings and investing in those types of things. It has freed me to be able to think and do some research and meet people like you and really expand my knowledge base. So I think systems really allow. Everyone thinks of systems as a choke point and like, well, if I have a system, I have to follow it. But I think systems are freeing in that it accommodates your base and it allows you to actually utilize that mind that you spend so much to develop.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I have a system for coming up with podcast questions.
Yeah.
And because if you're starting with a blank piece of paper, gosh, it's going to take you a long time. Whereas if you kind of have a template to start from, and you're right, you can modify it and customize it, but it just makes you so much faster and more effective and more powerful because you can actually do better work, I think, when you have a system in place. You're not going to miss areas that because you're so focused on doing a task, you have a system in place where you're going to not miss any of those critical components that need to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone so far to I created a new system this week in my office, and I'll share it with everybody here. I've noticed that at certain points of the year, there are some recurring things I need to do. In my home state of Connecticut, every January, I need to register my LLCs, which I have multiple of, with the state every year, right? So I said, I'm going to put this on a new shared Google Calendar that this has to be done at this point of the year. And over the course of the next year, every time I have something, like I know in September, I have to update my malpractice insurance with my Google local service ads. So that's on the calendar now. So now I'm going to have my annual calendar of recurring tasks I need to do that I can then share with everybody as of next December 31st. I'll have everything on there. And then I can share it with my spouse. I can share it with my COO. I can share it with my assistant and make sure those things get done. And I don't have to worry about it anymore because you always worry about something falling through the cracks and not getting done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You were mentioning how you've been bringing on new staff, new
Yes.
attorneys, and growing. So, what is it like going from working on your own to building a whole team? What are some of the key lessons that you learned in that process?
So for me, I think one of the first things that people need to realize is that onboarding your new team member doesn't start on the first day that they come to work for you. It starts with the job post that you put out there, how you interview them, who in your firm interviews them, and then how you treat them leading up to their very first day. And then after that, so many people think of a new employee starts on day one, but we're saying a new employee starts 90 days out when you envision the job and the role that you're going to put them in. And so if you could start with that mindset,
Hmm.
it's going to make that transition so much easier because by the time you get them to that first day one, I mean, there are things that we do in our office, because of the people that we have hired now are both split remote and in office. If you're in office on that first week and we have a new person coming in, everyone in the office wears a hello, my name is tag because it's hard. You're the one new person, Rebecca. Well, we all know Rebecca is brand new, but you're going to have to remember Jim and Jay and Joe. And there's three guys with J names, and then Emily and Phil and Brenton, who never shows up in the office because he's a remote worker, but he's based, you got to remember all these names. It's tough. It's intimidating. So we have a system for that to try to take away that stressful time for the new person. And all of those little things, I think, help in as you scale your business. And so those are the types of things that we like to do. And it's those systems that we've found that work over years that help us get a person onboarded into the flow and productive as soon as possible because you don't want to wait 90 days from day one to have a person being able to contribute because if you're hiring, you have a need for them today, most likely. And so the longer it takes for them to get into the groove, the harder it's going to be for you to be able to continue the growth that you're on.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So, as you're bringing folks on, having those systems in place, even for that onboarding aspect, so much of hiring new employees really is training and making them, they're going to be, their success is directly correlated with how well you train them.
Right.
And the tools that you provide them with. A lot of the stuff that we do on a daily basis is just administrative stuff that can be done by other people if they have the right knowledge and understanding of how to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other takeaway, I think, as you're onboarding people, as your business grows, not everyone is a good trainer. And I think
Mm,
you need to interact with your people. I have a couple of really great paralegals in our practice, and they're terrible at training new people. They'll freely admit it after years of trying and failing. But we've identified the people who are great at training,
mm.
and we're relying on them. But the people who are not, don't let them train, because that's going to impact culture, and it's going to impact your ability to actually get the person where they need to be.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Let's shift now and talk a little bit about the money because we were talking
Okay.
about that a little bit earlier. Um, let's just start with, you have some expertise that you've learned um, in terms of building wealth. And what advice would you give other law firm owners that maybe you wish you had earlier on or that you learned that helped you become successful? What advice do you have in terms of, the finances and then helping yourself accrue that personal wealth?
So for me, it really, and I've written a couple of books. The first Tiger Tactics, I get into this story. For me, my biggest challenge was very early on in my career. I was starting to make a little bit of money, not a lot by my current standards at all, but I made some money and I didn't set aside a single dollar for taxes. It was just the money was coming in, and I was, hey, this is life, man. This is good. I'm finally making money because after years of being a broke student and
Yeah.
struggling to get the practice going and that type of thing, and I knew that I had to pay taxes, but I wasn't really paying attention to it because I said, oh, the money will be there in a couple of months. I'll
Yeah.
just do it then. And then I wound up, owing the IRS $100,000, and I had to, get on the struggle bus to tighten the belt and make sure that I could pay that when it was due, and that was a challenge. And so what I did long before profit first was a buzzword in the industry. I said I need to take care of taxes first. So I set up an automation. And
Hmm.
this is something I joined my father's practice. He had never done this. And I said, well, why don't we just transfer money every week into a savings account that we could then
Yeah.
look at, quarterly and say, okay, now we can stroke the check and be done with it.
Yes.
And it was, and he was just like, I guess we could do that. I've never done that before. I'm like, but you've been doing this for 25 years. Why have you not set up a simple system? It's
Yeah.
literally 3 clicks of a mouse on your bank. And his response was, well, when I set up the bank, there was no mouses. I just, I would have had to cut a check and walk down and
Yeah.
put a deposit in. And it was never easy to do that. I said, well, we got to change things up because I need to make it idiot proof because I'm an idiot. And so I did things like set up tax payment, take some money, put it into a different bank. I don't even have, I have an out, transfer from my one account into a bank. I don't even have that bank account on my phone as an app. I've never,
Yeah.
the bank account exists, but I get the state paper statements that come
Yes.
that come in because I just want to make it idiot proof because I'm the big idiot that's there. And if I can mess with it, I will. But by being able to do that, I've been able to make myself much more financially secure. And of course, living below your means is certainly important.
Yes.
And it's something that I'm concerned about now as I've turned 51 this year. I want to retire. I want to get out of this game and sit on a beach and read books all day. That's my goal, right? And I want to be able to have the life that I want
Right.
for years to come, rather than be on this treadmill and unable to get off to enjoy the next stage.
Yes. Yes. So I love what you're doing with cash flow and turning those, quarterly big payments into smaller weekly payments into a different account. That's something I do with clients. We try and set those systems up. Um, that way, you don't have to come up with a huge check every quarter and panic. And it's so critical to put it into a different account. There's a psychological reason we go through this thing called mental accounting where when we have a large amount of money in one account, we feel wealthier than if it's the same amount of money spread over multiple accounts. And if it's commingled with your other money you're spending, then you're more likely to say, oh, I could dip into it and then replenish it later.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's I look at my bank, and I've got long terms for my firm, long term savings, payroll, emergency fund, and that keeps growing because it's getting money
Yeah.
every week. That type of thing. I probably need to speak to somebody like you to be like, okay, now that we've got six figures sitting in an account, what should I be doing with that? Because I shouldn't necessarily just leave it, in a bank at this
Yeah.
point, because there are opportunities that I'm missing by not paying attention to those things. Because one of the things, I get the systems in place, they seem to be running. I'm not thinking about opportunities financially because I'm like, oh, I can take on more cases. We can do more great things for our clients. And that's where I find joy.
Mhm.
But I also find joy in the fact that I know that, my family is going to be secure if anything were to happen to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would just say at a minimum, you want to make sure that if it's in a bank account, it's paying a nice, decent rate of return. And nowadays, that interest rates have increased over the last couple of years. There are opportunities for that, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
how many lawyers do we know? I'm sure you've met a ton. I know hundreds of them. Every dollar they have is in their firm operating account that is
Yeah.
making 0% interest, and that's it. They have nothing else, and it's frightening that's how they live their life, because it's not that hard to put in other systems in place.
Well, you got to have liquidity, and that's a big struggle I find with a lot of law firm owners that their liquidity is next to zero. They're basically running their firm client to client or paycheck to paycheck. And but if you have $100,000 in your firm operating account or in your business emergency fund, if it's in a high yield savings earning 5% a year, you're getting 5 grand a year. Just to have that
Yeah,
money sit somewhere. I mean,
what's
not
better than that?
bad,
Free money,
right?
I'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. Well, and along those lines, let me ask you this, because one of the issues I run into that I'm when dealing with firm owners, sometimes before they've gotten things streamlined, they're uh, they're taking money kind of ad hoc from the business and then sometimes putting money back into the business. Was there a point in your life where you, I don't know, had some experience with that or decided I'm going to set up a very, structured method for paying myself? What can you tell us about that?
So early on in my practice, I decided that I could not live on this. Hey, we have 10 grand in our operating account. Why don't we take 5 grand each this week? I didn't like that,
Yeah.
because I know myself, and at that point, I would go to Vegas for the weekend, and that's not the way to build anything. So I just said, look, I know for me, I want a steady paycheck, and I'll take a steady paycheck, and I'll pay myself what I think I am worth to the firm. And that way, I know I can make my mortgage payment, I can pay my bills, I can even put some money in savings away from that, because I just, not have to think about how much money do I need this week. Is a wonderful thing. And so once you figure that out, what you need, and I think everybody here is smart enough to say, okay, I can look at 12 months of my electric bill and 12 months of my cable bill, and I can figure out what I need to have weekly or monthly. I had 20% on top of that for a little bit of wiggle room. I know my taxes are going to be taken care of on the other side, and the best thing for me is to just have that stuff be as simple as possible. Does it mean that I've left money in my business that I could have taken as profit for myself? Absolutely. But what I find and what I have found is that I still really get jazzed about reinvesting in my business as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to not take as much profit out of my firm, because I'm able to either invest in the firm, or now for me, I'm not taking as much out of the firm as I probably could, because I'm hiring more people, because I'm taking time out of my firm instead of money. Whereas I don't need to spend as much time in my firm doing things, because now I have people in place to execute more things for me. And so I'm actually getting time back, which has a much greater value to me than a dollar.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Time is so more valuable. We don't get more of it. Uh,
Exactly. I can make more money. I can't make more time.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. As you've gone through, building your business and we're talking about cash flow, I just have one more thing I'm curious about. Was there ever a time that you were like going through a growth phase and you knew things were going to be lean and maybe you had to make some tough decisions? I have some people I've worked with who've, like, okay, it's going to be a lean year. Should I cut back my own paycheck and keep more money in the firm, or should I, borrow on the firm side to invest in this period of growth? How would you approach that, or have you had some experience with that?
So for me, banks were not interested in giving a criminal defense attorney a credit line
Mm,
early on. We didn't have uh, revenues and AR that we could show them that was recurring over months, quarters, and years. And so, I had an overdraft line and that was about it. So early on, 20 years ago or so, there were weeks where I didn't take a paycheck because I would rather spend that money on Google pay per click that week.
mm,
Knowing that it was okay, so I don't take a paycheck this week, but next week I'll make two paychecks and I'll make up for it. I didn't try to go very long without without a paycheck. I didn't borrow really um, to be able to grow and scale. I could have, maybe I should have, but I still pay my credit card bills weekly.
yeah,
Every week, every Friday, my credit card, my Amex card, and all the other cards that we use in the office, they get paid off completely.
I
If I
love it.
could do it daily like a casino, I would. I'd balance my books daily if I could,
Yeah.
because that just gives me a level of comfort. I love, and that's something else that I've been talking to some friends about the next stage, and I was thinking about it. I travel pretty well based on miles, right? I have because of the volume that we are using on a credit card. I haven't paid for a hotel room in years. I fly first class.
Yeah.
I travel very well when I do travel, and I travel somewhat regularly. Um, that's all going to go away when I step out of this firm. So
Hmm.
I have to start now figuring out how can I continue to travel when I'm paying the rack rate and I'm not getting it for free on points. And that's something that I have only recently started thinking about, but
Yeah.
I think that it's something that I need to start budgeting for because at some point it's not going to be a credit card in my name that's running the advertising for a firm anymore. That's a couple $100,000 of spend and a million plus points a year. So these are the
Nice.
things that I'm thinking about now, and I have the freedom to think about these things because I have the systems in place to pay those bills every Friday without me even thinking about it.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great thing to think about, for sure. And I love that you pay your credit card down every week. I think that is really, really smart. Something that I recommend to folks. Again, then you don't have this big, huge credit card bill you have to pay when it comes due. You're keeping it at zero on a consistent basis. So hats off to you on that one, Jay.
I'm
Um,
trying. I'm trying. And look,
yeah,
I'm not going to say that it's always been this way. You go
yeah.
back, 15, 16 years, and I was having a monthly Amex bill of, looking at $100,000, and I was paying 20,000 of it. And then I look back at all the interest that I paid them when if I had just paid it weekly, I wouldn't have had that interest. I'm able to, get ahead. That's what
Yeah,
I like.
certainly. Well, speaking
Because
of,
like I said, I'm not gonna hit a home run,
yeah.
right? I'm never gonna hit a home run. My highest fee that I ever got was $50,000 in cash from a Latin King. That's the biggest money I ever got coming in. I know PI lawyers that they don't even take cases that don't have a value of less than $100,000 to them. And my
Mhm.
biggest fee ever, and which was going to be a ton of work, was a garbage bag full of $50,000 in cash. So,
Well, that's very interesting. I'm sure that'd make
yeah,
a great uh part two for for our
sure, happy
podcast.
to talk about it.
Well, speaking of travel and thinking about the future, I've got one more question for you, and that
Sure.
is, what is your millionaire mission? And that is, what is your big goal that you're striving for?
So it's interesting. I spent the first decade of my practice really focusing on the art of trying cases, being a great criminal defense lawyer, and to the exclusion of pretty much everything else. Then I really got into running the business because I knew that I had sort of not that I had maxed out, but I really wanted to focus on getting the business to where I wanted for that financial security that because I knew I was going to be starting a family and that type of thing. But I'm at a point now. I'm really enjoying the coaching the lawyers that I do in the criminal mastermind. I'm helping lawyers who were once like me. You know, when I started out, there was no books, there were no podcasts, there were no gurus online to go to. I was, going to the local Borders bookstore and buying the new business book and seeing if I could find something in there that I could apply to the law practice. But I'm looking forward to the day where I can get entirely out of the operational side of my practice and sit on a beach and read. I was able to go to on points back in December. I took my wife away for a weekend to Aruba. I read a fiction book for the first time in like 4 years. And I was like, this is awesome. Sitting on a beach, having somebody bring me a drink, going in the water to cool off and read. Like I could get into this. Maybe I'll pick up pickleball and do
There
some
you
of those things.
go.
So, I know lawyers who are like, I just want to serve more people. I can't wait to not have to deal with people's problems. And I can't wait to just be hanging out with my wife and hanging out, with my kids when they're adults and being able to have some fun and not have to worry about any of this stuff. I've carried this weight for a long time. Now it's time to push it on to somebody else, enjoy the fruits of my victories and get to relax a little.
Absolutely. That sounds great to me.
Yeah.
So, well, and in closing here, Jay, would you share with our audience, just briefly, tell us a little bit about some of the work that you're doing with other law firm owners and how people can get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Sure. So, I'm very active on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jay Ruain. You can find me on Facebook there as well. I do have a Facebook group that's dedicated to systems called the Law Firm Blueprint, where I put up just sanitized versions of the systems in my office. But my real love has been building this thing called the Criminal Mastermind. It's a mastermind style program for criminal defense lawyers all across the country. I joined my father's practice. He had no business sense. He was struggling just like many people out there. And by applying business principles and thinking things through, we were able to really take our firm to unbelievable levels that we never expected and a lot of lawyers never expected. And what I found was there's a lot of struggling lawyers out there. You don't go into criminal law if you're not passionate about the subject matter. And it's not, no one goes into criminal law for the money. You just don't. But you can set up the business to do it the right way and be well protected and be financially secure. And so that's the mission that I have to try to help those lawyers get there. And so, it's a wonderful thing. If you're a criminal defense lawyer, I don't accept PI or family law. I want my people, rubber soled criminal defense lawyers hanging out in the dirty courthouses every day. Street lawyers like us. That's who my people are. That's who I like hanging out with. And it's really kind of fun to have a community where we can support each other. So I'm really excited about that and where that's going. We're 2 years in, and it's really growing, and people really love the content. So it's exciting.
That is awesome. That's a great message. It's a great mission. And I wish you great success in that, Jay. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I can't wait to do round 2 where I can tell you about garbage bags full of cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode today. To our listeners, we hope you found this conversation enjoyable and that you gained some new knowledge for your journey. We'd love to know your thoughts, so please take a moment and leave a review for our show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to The Lawyer Millionaire for more inspirational and informative discussions. Before we part ways, I'd love to extend an invitation for all of our listeners to visit our website at thelawyermillionaire.com to discover more about financial planning tailored specifically for law firm owners. You deserve a future paved with security and success, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Together, let's chart a course towards a prosperous and fulfilling life in the world of law. Until next time, this is your host, Darren Wirtz, wishing you continued growth and financial prosperity.